It all begins with something truly beautiful to watch. A common flower and a little bee flying toward it. The bee lands to collect pollen and carry it to another flower. A delicate process that is quite difficult to achieve. Teddy describes it as being like sex, but much cleaner and without anyone getting hurt in the process. As they both stare intently at their beehives, Teddy tells Dawn that this is how 1/3 of all the food we eat is grown, teaching us that bees are absolutely necessary for survival. However, he notes it's a shame that they are dying from a disease called colony collapse disorder. Dawn remembers they've discussed this before, suggesting it's like a contagious disease where worker bees abandon their queen, or maybe the fault lies with pesticides and the habitat destruction caused by governments and giant food corporations. However, Teddy is convinced there is something much larger and more organized pulling the strings from behind the scenes. Teddy states with great confidence that he has carefully studied both the soil on the ground and the stars in the sky. He discovered a superior force that has us trapped, poisoning and strangling us. He repeats to Dawn over and over that the two of them aren't in charge here. They are, and now it's up to both of them to stop them. That's why they train both their bodies and minds. Teddy warns him that this monster or entity will want to control and harm them, so they must be ready to endure and fight, as she is very dangerous and will try to invade their thoughts every chance she gets. While doing breathing exercises and making funny faces that make Dawn laugh, Teddy reminds him that if they hunt for this thing, she will hunt them back. Realizing Dawn speaks with fear, Teddy asks him to look him in the eye and forbids him from apologizing, firmly telling him that nothing happening is his fault and that they need to become better to win. Walking down the street, Dawn asks if the people passing by are also part of them. Teddy explains those people are fine, though they are empty on the inside and defenseless, exactly how that entity wants them. She wants humanity to be like a swarm of dead, separated bees that can never return home. Meanwhile, in a very modern corporate office, we see Michelle, a high-ranking executive, preparing to record a company video. She talks about the benefits of a diverse workforce, stating that groups with different life experiences find new solutions rather than repeating the same old things. However, she gets annoyed realizing she repeats the word diverse too much and asks to record again to rephrase. After finishing the recording, Michelle tells her assistant Corey to let all employees know they can leave at 5:30 p.m. from now on if they don't have urgent matters. She wants to create a new work culture where people can spend time with family and not live stressed out, though she reminds them that tasks must still be completed if necessary. Leaving the office, Michelle tells the valet he can leave early too. But just as she's about to get into her car, Teddy and Dawn attack her violently. Amidst screaming and shoving as she begs them to let her go, they manage to inject her with a sedative and shove her into her own vehicle. Once in the car with Michelle fast asleep, Teddy orders Dawn to cut her hair as fast as possible because hair acts as a tracking device. Dawn starts shaving her head with clippers while Teddy drives, telling him to press the clippers harder without fear of cutting her skin. Arriving at their hideout, Teddy congratulates Dawn for acting like a strong, brave man. They begin examining their prisoner, noting details Teddy considers clear proof she isn't human. Small feet, very thin cuticles, slightly protruding upper teeth, and a specific ear shape. He is certain that, despite excellent plastic surgery, someone who knows what to look for can tell she isn't human. Teddy explains to Dawn that they have to smear Michelle's body with a special cream. Although she looks human, her nerves and brain function differently, and allergy medicine will clash with her brain chemistry to weaken her. He clarifies they aren't doing this to torture her, but to ensure a fair fight. After that, they change clothes, putting on suits that belong to Teddy's father, who left them there for something important. Although Dawn feels he looks ridiculous, Teddy tells him he looks great and reminds him that the thing can no longer control them. Before entering the room to talk to her, Teddy tells Dawn it's best if he stays quiet and lets Teddy do almost all the talking. Michelle wakes up confused, asking if she is in a hospital. Teddy tells her she is at the Human Resistance Command Center. He explains that even though they know she comes from the Andromeda Galaxy and isn't protected by the laws of war, they will try to behave and be polite to her. Touching her head and realizing she's been shaved bald, Michelle asks why they did that. Teddy replies it was to prevent her from signaling her main spaceship, adding that they will apply the allergy cream every day. Trying to keep her cool and reach an agreement, Michelle warns them that police and government agents will start searching everywhere within 2 days because she is a high-profile executive generating significant revenue for the area. She assures them there is no way they come out ahead unless they help her and make a deal. Teddy is surprised by how she speaks, admitting she almost made him feel pity like a human and made his heart beat faster. But he quickly dismisses everything she says, arguing that the truth known to humans is worthless compared to the knowledge of beings from Andromeda. Teddy starts explaining his theory, accusing her of being a high-ranking leader of the Andromeda government, helping to enslave Earth using technology and destroying food crops. He notifies her that his plan is to go to the main ship on the night of the lunar eclipse to negotiate her species' departure from the planet. Michelle repeatedly insists she isn't an alien, explaining her youthful appearance is due to diets and expensive treatments. But Teddy claims he took a thermal photo of her and saw Andromeda codes on her Instagram account. He gives her a deadline to prepare what she will say to her emperor that very night. Teddy screams furiously that she is to blame for the death of his family, his neighbors, and the bees. He tells her she should be grateful he's a professional and isn't skinning her alive right there, deciding to let her rest until dawn the next day. Michelle begs them not to go and asks to keep talking, but Teddy walks out with Dawn. He warns Dawn not to look at her as a human woman, but as a monster in human form representing all corporate evil, an expert in playing with feelings to elicit pity. Teddy reminds Dawn they only have 4 days until the lunar eclipse for the ship to return. They need that human copy to help call the ship so they can fight for their lives and for all people, promising Dawn that one day the world will see him as the hero he truly is. In a moment where Teddy is lost in thought and seems to recall something sad, a woman's voice is heard, likely Teddy's mother. She talks about how they put poison in her body to change how her cells and blood work, complaining that they sell the disease and then sell the cure just to make money. However, she says she will endure it for him so they don't do the same to him. Later, Teddy runs into Casey on the street, an old acquaintance who used to look after him when he was a kid. Casey greets him warmly and asks how he's been, mentioning it's been a long time since they talked because a lot has happened. Casey tells him he thinks of him sometimes and offers to help if he ever needs anything, even suggesting he could swing by his house someday. But Teddy, acting distant and pretending to be in a rush, gently declines, saying maybe they can meet up another time. Teddy gets to work and runs into Tina, a co-worker complaining that her hand hurts because of the machines. Although she's afraid to speak up for fear of being punished, Teddy assures her that things will soon be different and that those bastards won't get away with it. Meanwhile, the news reports that Michelle Fuller has disappeared, explaining that her car was last seen leaving her office. The police have launched a massive manhunt, suspecting kidnapping due to her wealth. Teddy listens to it all indifferently while sharing some honey with a co-worker named Carlos. Back at the house, Dawn informs him that Michelle hasn't wanted to eat or use the bathroom. Teddy explains that this is just part of her plan to elicit pity, so they go down to the basement again to confront her. Michelle, exhausted by everything, decides to play along. She sarcastically tells them that yes, she is an alien living on this planet, but Teddy gets annoyed, asking if that's a joke or if she's trying to mimic human humor, criticizing her for not even saying it in her own language. Michelle tries to explain logically that she's been thinking about the situation. Using her knowledge of the human mind, she suggests Teddy is trapped in an echo chamber of like-minded people, reading things online that reinforce a warped view of the real world. This makes Teddy furious. He dismisses the idea as ruling class garbage and fancy buzzwords created to stop the human rebellion. He accuses her of using that vocabulary to keep millions trapped in institutional lies, even screaming to correct her pronunciation of a difficult word. Michelle mockingly apologizes, saying grammar must also be a lie invented by Andromeda. She agrees to have an honest conversation, asking him directly what he really wants if he isn't after money, power, or sex. Teddy explains to Michelle that her attempts at seduction won't work because he and Dawn have taken medication to suppress their ability to reproduce and their sexual desire. He details that they do this to purge their minds of bodily needs, those neural connections that, according to him, only serve the purpose of making babies and monogamy, which are traps that bring only pain. Teddy claims that by removing desire, he has become the master of himself, totally free. However, Dawn doesn't seem so sure. Later, he confesses to Teddy that since taking the injection, he feels strange, a little sad, and mentally foggy. Teddy dismisses it, telling him it's just a phase and will pass soon. The next day, Michelle completely changes her demeanor. With a voice that sounds tired but steady, she tells Teddy she has done a lot of thinking and is ready to start over. To her captor's surprise, Michelle states loud and clear, "I am an alien." She admits Teddy was right all along and that she was only trying to hide her true identity as part of her undercover work on Earth. Although she warns them that her confession might sound implausible without physical proof, she swears she is telling the truth and wants to move forward to find a solution. Teddy, who is skeptical but curious, accepts her confession but decides to test her to be sure of what she is. He straps her into a chair connected to a homemade electric shock device. Terrified, Michelle begs them not to do it, insisting she already admitted what they wanted to hear. Teddy ignores her screams and triggers the first shock. Michelle's body convulses violently from the electricity. Don, looking visibly distraught, asks his cousin to stop, but Teddy cranks up the voltage and hits her with a second shock. The machine starts to short out because Michelle is physically withstanding so much until Don steps in to stop the madness. Teddy, seeing she has endured an amount of electricity that would kill any human, suddenly shifts his attitude. With a mix of surprise and deep respect, he apologizes profusely, reasoning that the fact she could endure so much means she isn't just a common worker, but possesses royal genetic code. He calls her Your Majesty, cleans the blood from her, and treats her with a level of care that is somewhat unnerving. The story then flashes back to the past, where we see a young Michelle talking to a much younger Teddy. In this moment, she tries to explain a tragedy, saying her company never anticipated the medicine would cause severe side effects for Sandy, Teddy's mom. Michelle admits they believed a financial settlement would be enough to fix the damage, failing to understand that money couldn't fix the fact that they had destroyed her life. Back in the present, with only one day left until the eclipse, Teddy begins treating his royal guest with lavish attention. He boards up the windows to block out all light, gets her a wig to hide her baldness, and lets her bathe and wear his mother's clothes, preparing for a very elegant dinner. During dinner, the tension is palpable. Michelle tries to make polite conversation, complimenting the house and asking about Teddy's life, but he deflects any personal questions. The conversation shifts to bees. Michelle mentions she loves how hardworking they are and how they perform their tasks without complaint, but Teddy retorts that this very nature makes them easy to exploit. When Michelle comments that colony collapse disorder has declined and that pesticides aren't to blame, Teddy explodes in rage. He accuses her of being a liar and reciting corporate propaganda to hide the truth, that she and her species are killing the bees and the entire planet. The argument turns personal when Michelle mentions the name Sandy Gatz. Teddy, filled with fury, forbids her from speaking that name. Michelle insists she is capable of helping his mom, causing Teddy to lose control and tackle her, pinning her neck to the floor while screaming profanities at her. The violence stops abruptly when the doorbell rings. Teddy, trying to compose himself, answers the door to find Casey, the police officer again. This time, Casey isn't just passing by. He warns him they are investigating Michelle Fuller's disappearance and that her cell phone pinged a tower nearby, adding that a traffic cam took a photo of her car on the road. Teddy, nervous but trying to act normal, says he hasn't seen anything and claims he only works inspecting packages. Casey, suspicious, spots the handcuffs on a chair and remarks how strange it is to see them there after so many years. But Teddy manages to deflect, inviting him to see his beehives in the backyard, trying to steer him away from the house. Meanwhile, in the basement, Michelle is alone with Don, who is trembling with fear and pointing a gun at her. Seizing the opportunity while Teddy is away, Michelle plays her final card to save herself. She tells Don she knows he isn't a bad person and that Teddy is leading him down a path with no exit. She assures him the police are upstairs and that if he lets her go right now, she can save them both. Don, confused and terrified, initially refuses, repeating that Teddy is all he has and he can't betray him. Michelle, adapting to the fantasy narrative they believe in, promises that if he releases her, she will take him on her spaceship to leave Earth forever. Don, desperate to escape his sad life, agrees, but with one condition: he won't go without Teddy. Michelle insists there's no time. They have to leave that very instant. Caught between loyalty to his cousin and the promise of escape, Don makes a terrible decision. He asks Michelle to tell Teddy he's very sorry and that he loves him. Immediately after, he places the gun under his chin. Michelle screams, trying to stop him, but it's no use. Don pulls the trigger. The loud bang alerts Teddy, who was outside with Casey. Realizing what has happened, the issue with the police officer is resolved in a deadly, unseen manner, allowing Teddy to run desperately toward the basement. Arriving to find his cousin's dead body, Teddy collapses in grief. He screams in agony and rage, blaming Michelle for filling Don's head with lies until he couldn't take it anymore. He readies his shotgun and aims at Michelle, determined to end her life. Knowing she is about to die, she screams at him not to shoot, revealing she has the medicine to cure his mom. Teddy freezes in disbelief. Michelle quickly explains that his mother's body, being the first test subject, is undergoing a genetic change. If that process is halted with chemicals, she will wake up. She reveals the cure is hidden in the trunk of her car, inside a yellow bottle labeled as antifreeze. Desperate to cling to any hope of saving the only person he has left, Teddy strikes Michelle, momentarily incapacitating her, and runs out of the house. He hops on his bike and pedals with all his might toward the hospital, carrying the bottle he believes is salvation, while Michelle, battered and alone in the basement with Don's corpse, looks for a way to free herself. Teddy arrives at the hospital gasping for air and sprints through the hallways until he finds his mom, Sandy, comatose and hooked up to machines. With trembling hands but driven by blind faith in Michelle's words, he takes out the yellow bottle found in the car. Ignoring common sense and the warning label, he injects the liquid directly into his mother's IV line, convinced it is the miracle cure that will fix her genes. Teddy stands by the bedside, weeping and begging her to wake up, waiting for the movement or sign of life Michelle promised. However, reality hits him in the cruelest way possible when, instead of opening her eyes, the heart monitor begins to emit a long, high-pitched tone, signaling that Sandy's heart has stopped forever. Teddy's despair instantly turns into uncontrollable fury as he realizes he just killed his own mother with motor fluid, exactly as the label he chose to ignore had stated. Totally shattered and feeling betrayed, he flees the hospital and speeds back to the house, storming into the basement to find the culprit of his misery. There he finds Michelle, who has managed to free herself from the ropes using the keys she took from Don's body. Teddy refuses to hear any excuses, screaming that she is a monster for lying to him. In the midst of his emotional breakdown, Teddy demands the truth about her mission and asks how many of the people he investigated and eliminated were actually aliens. Michelle's answer is cold and devastating. She simply replies that there were two. Teddy's world completely crumbles as he confirms that almost all his victims were innocent humans. Teddy calls her a miserable sicko, but Michelle takes control of the conversation, launching into the supposed true history of humanity to justify her appearance and mission. She tells him that the 75th emperor of her species discovered Earth when it was full of dinosaurs, animals living in perfect balance, but the Andromedans accidentally released a deadly virus that wiped them out. Guilt-ridden over the mass extinction, the emperor decided to give life back to the planet and created humans in his own image. Michelle continues, explaining that those early test humans could barely stand, but eventually walked, reproduced, and formed a civilization at peace with nature that worshipped the aliens as gods, an era ancient stories remember as Atlantis. However, ambition took hold of the humans. Some wanted to surpass their creators, engineering their own modified humans to be stronger and more aggressive. This provoked a conflict that escalated into a nuclear war, killing almost all of humanity except for a small group that survived on a boat floating in the ocean for 100 years. When it was finally safe to step on land again, the leaders had died, leaving only mutated, devolved beings we now know as apes. According to Michelle, evolution restarted from that point of disaster, leading to Teddy's current ancestors, who continued fighting each other in an endless cycle of war, slaughter, and environmental destruction. She explains that humans polluted the water, destroyed the climate, and poisoned themselves with drugs and technology, proving they are naturally selfish and cruel due to the aggressive genes their ancestors engineered. Michelle asserts that the Andromedans returned not to kill them, but to remove that suicide gene and save humanity from itself. She claims Sandy was chosen as a test subject specifically because she was sick and weak, reasoning that if they could fix her, they could fix the whole species. Michelle blames Teddy for ruining the experiment by killing her, but quickly offers a new way out. She assures him there are other test subjects who are improving and that they must present them to the Emperor the next day during the lunar eclipse. Despite the hatred Teddy feels for her, Michelle manages to manipulate him again, telling him she holds the information needed to save Earth and that this is their shared destiny. And so, under the eerie light of the eclipse, the two drive to the pharmaceutical company offices with Don's body wrapped up in the back seat, a silent, tense journey toward what Teddy believes is final salvation. Upon arriving at the offices, Michelle puts on a wig to hide her baldness and walks in confidently, greeting guards and employees as if nothing happened, while Teddy follows closely, looking very nervous and carrying a backpack. Michelle orders all employees to leave early, emptying the building so they are alone. Once in her private office, Michelle explains to Teddy that they will make remote contact with the Emperor and be beamed up to the ship. To open the connection, Michelle pulls out an ordinary calculator, explaining to a skeptical Teddy that the device must look simple and human so no one notices. She begins typing a massive 58-digit code she claims to have memorized. The tension rises as Michelle slowly types the numbers, feigning deep concentration, while Teddy waits anxiously, asking if this will really work. Finally, Michelle announces the connection is ready, and only the final button needs to be pressed. Teddy, who is wearing a vest rigged with explosives as insurance in case they try to kill him, says he is ready. Michelle, flattering him about his intelligence and calling him a credit to his species, indicates that the office closet functions as a teleportation device and they must enter separately so their bodies don't merge. Although she initially pretends she will go first to gain his trust, she ends up convincing Teddy to step into the closet first. Teddy steps into the small space, trusting one last time that he is saving the world. Michelle begins the countdown. 3, 2, 1. At that instant, an explosion rocks the office. The bomb Teddy was wearing detonates, killing him instantly and throwing Michelle across the room, knocking her unconscious. Sometime later, Michelle wakes up groggy in the back of an ambulance, where paramedics tell her Teddy died in the explosion. Wasting no time, Michelle jumps out of the ambulance and sprints back to the office building, ignoring the shouts of police trying to stop her. She returns to her wrecked office, retrieves the calculator, and locks herself in the closet again. This time, the device actually works, and she vanishes, teleporting off Earth. She appears inside a massive spaceship, where her human appearance fades away, and she begins speaking in her native tongue with her aides and the Emperor. It is revealed that everything she told Teddy about being an alien was true. She is the Empress. She reports she couldn't call them sooner because her hair, which served as a transmitter, had been removed. Reviewing the final data, they decide the human experiment has been a total failure, with a 0% success rate. Michelle, with absolute coldness, declares that humans have had their chance and failed. With a simple motion, she activates a machine that destroys Earth's atmosphere. Down below, humanity dies instantly, leaving the planet silent, inhabited only by the bees, who, finally free of the human plague, continue their life cycle in a world that now belongs entirely to them.